Are you ready to take your aerial reconnaissance to new heights? Meet Werx, your go-to source for cutting-edge aviation analysis and intelligence updates. It's all happening right on Patreon. With 4 tiers, you get to choose what level suits your needs. From discounts at the workshop to ad-free content, you'll have access to live SITREPs, Q&As, and video archives. Werx Patreon isn't just a subscription. It's a doorway to unparalleled insights, exclusive content only available here, and a strong community of like-minded individuals who share the same passion for intelligence analysis.
Hey folks, Mil-Spec Ops Wiki here. Listen, I am thrilled to invite you to our exclusive community over here on Patreon. All right, hey, welcome folks. Mil-Spec Ops Wiki here. It's going to be your SITREP. It's 5/7/2024, and we are getting into what's going on around the world. As always, we're going to look at the F-16 aspect and why I don't think you're going to see these anytime soon in Ukraine. Now, the other piece too, we're just going to look at all of the data that's out there, and we're going to peel that onion back a little bit in terms of not just the flights, but we're also going to look at the news cycle in terms of Russia and Ukraine, where this is all headed. Do we have a spring offensive in the making? Quite possibly, but it will not involve, at least from a Ukrainian standpoint, any F-16's. More than likely, it'll be very few. If there is any air campaign at all, it'll have to be NATO because the Ukrainians will not be ready. So we'll talk more about that here in just a minute. But let me do this. I'm going to bounce us over here to the Mini as we kick it off in Skyglass as always. And you can see we're just looking at currently up in the sky are going to be the air refuelers. We've got 10 B-76200s Pegasus and then 23 KC-135s that are up. But that's a pretty good number, right? It's actually about our average, believe it or not. On screen it says 30, so 25 is kind of where our baseline has been as of late, which is a very elevated number. We see it spike sometimes to 40 plus, 45, 50, just some crazy numbers. But there is that aspect. Now let me bounce these out. Total number mil aircraft up to 48. And of course, I've stripped out the Tex-2s, the T-38s, and the EC-35s. So let's look at the H-60s. And we'll wait for that to just marinate for a second. Come on. But the H-60s, if we just talk about those, since clearly is thinking on me, 30 H-60 Blackhawks up over the United States, which is it's a pretty good elevated number. Let's see if it'll do it now. There you go. Northeast, as always, very, very active. Nothing in the Panhandle, which is a shocker. And, of course, we got a massive weather system moving through right here in kind of the heart of things, so that will thin the herd a bit. All right, C-17s, 24 of those up. Notice there's where they're located, off the East Coast. All right, and then a couple C-130s we can just take a gander. Those are kind of your short-haul aircraft, and we seem to have quite a few of those up to almost 40. Okay, now let's go over here. I want to take a gander. First and foremost, let's look at the intel community, what they're up to. Look at Israel. Very important. Just notice the amount of work that's being done from the intel side of the house. Now, I've got another data point for you here on the sub-hunters as well, but notice how thick and how many flights are looking out over Crimea right now. That is a lot. That's 5 days worth of intelligence gathering. Now, of course, notice the side look there down towards Serbia and Kosovo. That's because we think that those two might be about to go to fisticuffs. So we got eyes on that situation because that could destabilize a lot of things in the region. All right. Now, the other piece too is notice that they're looking closely at Kaliningrad, Belarus, into Russia. Again, a lot of thick layers. They're looking closely at the Baltic Sea, right? A lot of flights there for 5 days. That's very active. That tells me they've got some worries. Got some broken traces headed out of Texas. Looks to be coming out of Fort Hood. And then notice this one. We'll talk a little more here in just a second. Into Panama, all right? We've seen the Spec Ops community go down there. Now we see some intel aircraft going down And then just notice you've got them headed up into, it looks to be Wisconsin. So this, interesting from an intel perspective, makes you just wonder what they are worried about. The Panama piece, again, we'll talk more about that here in just a minute. So that's the intel side. Now let's look at the R-135s. Very active and busy here across, Montana, Wyoming, out there in that neck of the woods. See the square, right? So that tells you they're looking at something out here. All right. Then we see them in and out of Wisconsin as well, it looks like, which is interesting. You got an intel flight going up there. Now note the broken traces coming into Europe, down towards Malta, out over the Mediterranean, and then, of course, our R-135 looking very closely at what's going on in Israel. Okay, we'll talk more about that here in just a minute as well. But important to note, we have R-135s over the area. We have a multitude of other resources, intel, aircraft, etc., fighters out over the Mediterranean. Okay, so they are certainly watching that very closely as we turn around and shaft Israel. All right, we'll talk about that in the news cycle. We've been bamboozled once again. And then notice again the different elevations from the R-135s looking around the same area. Again, last 5 days, very active, very busy. R-135s, high intel gathering from the intelligence aircraft, in addition to the R-135s, which are also kind of that recon intel gathering. And then we can see some stuff flying out of Okinawa, headed down towards the Philippines and Malaysia, and then that broken trace that kind of heads out towards Sri Lanka. Okay, now look at this. This is your sub-hunters. We see them out of Okinawa. Yeah, you kind of expect to see that. Very active and busy down in Australia. A lot of layers, a lot of in and outs, headed down to Tasmania, some stuff over there in New Zealand. But then look at this. We're going to get over to Israel here in just a second. Notice the ones coming into the Malta region, right? And then see that out over near Constanta, et cetera. It's going to be a Navy P-8. And then look at this. This is interesting. The reason this is interesting, remember the intel flights. Now, this with the Navy, that's going to be ground penetrating radar. They're looking at tunnels, all right? Guarantee you they are eyes on tunnels. You'll probably see a bit of a campaign here shortly taking out tunnels where they'll use bunker busters, et cetera, just to annihilate these tunnels. And then, of course, you can see this over the United States. Again, look at this one headed down to Central America. We've got these off the east coast of Florida, right? But then see this down into Guatemala? Very interesting. Interesting to say the least. Okay, right? You see that going into that location? Right? And then, of course, up the west coast, you can see a little bit of activity there off of Seattle, out over the water. And then we head down to Hawaii, to my Ohana monkeys there in Hawaii. Okay, now that's that aspect. Now look at this. We're continuing on over here near Israel. This is the Russians. Okay, just notice that little flight that kind of blips in right over Tel Aviv or very close to that location just right along Gaza. Getting a good look at that. Notice the flight into Crimea. Right? So last 5 days, not crazy busy. You can see this one that comes out of Kaliningrad, flies around because they are not allowed to fly directly over, which is a very short, fast flight if they were to. But yeah, making them fly around into St. Petersburg. And then you can see what looks to be a pretty far north flight from their standpoint. Right? Now, nothing over the United States. Again, if we look at the Israeli side, this is not the intel. This is probably going to be their B-703 more than likely, right? Or some C-130s, okay, over Israel. Okay, now look at the Spec Ops community. Notice down to the border, right? California border. Okay, and then notice you got some flights to the interior of the United States. See this one right here? look how many flights this has been ongoing. Every week we're seeing them go into Guantanamo Bay, right? And then we just saw them down at Panama. So we've got Intel flights in Panama. We have R-135s, Navy P-8s headed down into Guatemala and that area, right? Very, very unusual to see that type of activity in that area. Although we do know that they've had unrest in Panama. Of course, the United States was probably behind that. And then, of course, we probably just placed our leader into the mix because that's what our deep state does. Look at this. Now, this is the air refueling activity last 5 days. Insane amount. I have a big observation from what I can tell just based on these traces. I do think we're pushing a lot of fighters into the region. All right. That's Malta. You see them out over the Mediterranean. Okay, it's a good indicator we've got fighters there. And then I think we're pushing some fighters into that particular. See these long traces, right? That's usually what you see when you're transitioning fighters across the drink because they're going to need air refueling every, so many miles when they get up at altitude. And so that's how you get them across. And so you can just see we've got a sea of transitions going, and it does look like we've been moving a lot of fighters out to Europe and into the Middle East. A lot of fighters, right? And then notice too, just across the United States, last 5 days, very active and busy, down to the Texas border, down to the southern border of California, and then down here into Central America, right? Air refuelers. So we're parking refuelers there, which would tell me you probably got some fighters down there as well. Okay. Did we expect something to go awry in Panama, or were we just putting in little insurance there? Okay. And then you can see Okinawa up into Japan, pretty active and busy in terms of air refueling. Okay. What's interesting is you get down to Australia, no air refuelers. Well, I'm sure they've got them. They're just not, we're just not seeing them. So, okay. Now, let's do this. I want to point out, before we get too far along, just the sheer fact that the weather modification stuff is still happening. I'm not talking about chemtrails and planes flying over. I'm talking about companies that are in the business. They're private contractors. SOAR, which is Seating Operations and Aerial Research. That's the first company. The other one is Weather Modification, LLC. Okay? You're hearing of record outbreaks, large tornadoes, etc. And you can see, we go over here to the news cycle. That would not be it. Well, we thought we'd go over here to the news cycle, and evidently I just deleted what I had. But yeah, we've just had an instance where we had a very large tornado on ground in Oklahoma that was about a mile long. Okay, so when that happens, and I do apologize, the article just kind of just fizzled there. But let's just take a look. I want to show you the weather modification flight activity since Saturday. All right. Now, this is pretty, well, they're almost up every day. And we're seeing these conditions that come in that are Torcon 3 and 4, get up into Oklahoma. And it's a huge, huge risk to have these flights up, seeding the air when you have those kind of conditions, okay? And what you get from that are large thunderstorms, right? Now, it doesn't just stop there. We just told you about the Saudis. They have a program over there they're working, so does UAE. The Saudis are using Weather Modification LLC, the U.S. company. Now, notice they're over Riyadh, okay? And they are cloud seeding. But that, and you see a little blip there north of Bahrain. But when you do that, hundreds of miles away, that stuff gets into the atmosphere and it starts to basically wreak havoc. It stays up there, the droplets get big. So if you have a hailstorm and you already have an increased amount of water retention in the droplets, then you'd make large hail. And so that's what you're seeing in Oklahoma, all the way from the border of Texas, which would be, you're talking in this general area. So they're cloud seeding here around Abilene and Sweetwater, All right, and this company here is SOAR. Now, the nice thing, what I don't see is Weather Modification LLC out here. They're usually out in this general area doing stuff. This is SOAR. This is another company. If they're doing the cloud seeding right here, what happens is the winds aloft carry that stuff up into here. So if you're in Lawton all the way into Oklahoma City, you're getting pummeled by storms. Now look at this. This is the jet stream. And this is very important because, again, they're cloud seeding. Let's see. Breckenridge. So you've got Abilene out here. So this Sweetwater, this is the area they're cloud seeding. These are the winds. Okay, so you can see the jet stream is very strong right now. So if they're cloud seeding here, this stuff is getting carried right through here. If they do it further south, depending on the wind direction, we see it in Fort Worth and Dallas, all the way up into North Texas along the border, along the Red River, etc. But when they do it out here, this stuff gets carried into this area, and this is why you see the outbreak of tornadoes, etc. Okay, let me do this. I want to take away the winds so that we can just get you eyes on the storms. You can see right now it looks like they're pushing up into this area. Now this is going to be flashbang rolling through. That's going to be his TFRs. In fact, while we're sitting here, we may as well just take a gander at the date on these TFRs. Looks like he's headed to Chicago May 8th, so that's tomorrow. All right. Okay, we'll back that away. Again, this is going to be flashbang, right? He gets large TFRs. This right here, I'm not really sure what this is. Exercise scheduled in the Wisconsin. No, that's not Wisconsin. Sorry. Numerous aircraft. All right. Radius defined. All right. Surface to 1,800 feet. So these are going to be low altitude aircraft. So probably helos, et cetera, low hanging fruit. So, all right. Again, danger boxes off that side of the East Coast. All right. Let's move on over to flashbang and his schedule. Get away from the weather. Yeah, but I would just say if you're in the areas that are being impacted, you need to contact your insurance company. You need to show them the flights, what's been going on, the fact that this company, these cloud seeding companies, nothing more. You never know who you're talking to and how far that can get elevated. If the insurance companies start going after these seeding operations, they have the money to do so. And if it's impacting their clients and it's impacting their coverages, then they're going to probably make these cloud seeding companies pay. Okay. All right. Now, let's get into flashbang's schedule. Looks like he's en route to the U.S. Capitol. Nobody really cares. He's going to look at Holocaust survivors. Again, he's just panhandling for votes. And looks like he's bringing in the president of Romania. Hugely corrupt country, by the way. And I mean, should we be surprised? We're dealing with Ukraine like we are. So nonetheless, we've been moving a lot of assets and resources into the country. So he's probably giving them something in return, right? I'm sure he's got the checkbook opened up on his desk. So, all right. Now, speaking of Bidenomics, just it's a hideous condition. Our economy is in very bad shape, folks, and it is on the brink. So you look at this. This is pretty crazy. He's ready to use the SPR again if needed. Now, let me go over here just to show you where the SPR was when we left off. This was in September of last year. We had 17 days. Okay, 17 days of SPR. Notice the red line. That bad dude just straight free fall, okay? Because he's been giving it to China. He's been doing a lot of different things with it. He uses it to try to stabilize when we get spikes at the pump, etc. 17 days is not good, right? It's the lowest it's been since its inception in 1980, I think it was. So not really good. Now, they say, oh, we've been replenishing the SPR for months. And we've added, this is where it gets comical because they're talking about how much they've added to the SPR. Let me find the number. But they were saying that, if it got down to $72 a barrel, that would be their price point. They could actually start to replen. Hasn't really happened that way. Okay. But look at this right here. Several offers for the purchase of 3 million barrels have been canceled already because prices got too high for the DOE, which had set itself a ceiling of $79 a barrel. But check this out. they bought back some, and they bought a whopping 32.3 million barrels. Well, you go, man, that's a lot of oil. Not really, because we consume 20 plus million barrels a day. Okay. So when you start to talk about this, you basically added less than a day and a half's worth of oil into the SPR, which let me get over here to this side. This is what I was looking at. Sorry, as we talk through it. But yeah, you can see just absolutely ridiculous. Not going to happen. Probably not. Just, yeah, we're in a bad position here. Really, really bad. Okay. And this guy has gotten us here because he's just an idiot. So, all right. Well, this says it all you need to know right here. Look in his hand. Okay. So check this out. 41% of Americans think that we are likely to have a civil war by 2029. That's only 5 years away. A lot say sooner amid the chaos, and I would agree with the sooner. I think we have a very high likelihood, if not before the election, immediately following the election. Because here's the reality. If Flashbang does what he did last time and is able to get in, even though we know that this guy doesn't even have the ability to fill a Burger King with supporters, I think you won't have the same sentiment from the Trump supporters that you had last time. I think you more than likely will see people revolt, okay? So there's that aspect of it. But the other piece, too, is you've got other conditions. So let's say that Trump gets in. Well, now you got Soros and his cronies who would probably just, unleash the hounds, all right? And so eyes on that. Pay close attention to it because it probably will become relevant, all right? Okay, check us out. U.S. is delaying the sale of precision weapons to Israel. Yeah, we got bamboozled. So what happened is they come in and they say, well, we're going to bundle this package. We're going to send stuff to Taiwan. We got things in there for Ukraine, like $60 billion. And then Israel, we're going to give them some money, okay? Passes based on that. And then immediately Flashbang comes in and says, we're going to delay the sale. We're going to hold back all the Israeli stuff. So where they won't hold back is the money going to Gaza and to Hamas and Hezbollah over in the West Bank. Okay? All right. These guys should be in jail. I say it every single time. The saying of you don't, in order for evil to succeed, all you need are good men to do nothing. All right? And that's where we are today. We're allowing them by doing nothing to get away with this. That's why I think you got a higher percentage of civil unrest here in the U.S. Okay, a little Glex airplane right there coming in, and or actually out here, coming out of Biggs Army Airfield right here. That is going to be one of your intel birds. Okay, now let me go down. The big takeaway is notice who is coming in. That Airbus. From Allegiant Air coming in from Indy and then heading back to Indy. More than likely, that's carrying migrants out of the 15,000 capacity camp in Biggs Army Airfield. Okay, over to Dover. Just notice the large birds coming in again. All right, that's an indication these things are headed over to Europe and into RZE Poland. All right, so that means we're probably moving missile defense stuff over. Right, just notice these are all Atlas Airs coming in. This one's a Camber flight coming inbound from League, but then it is actually departing. We've got one headed back to RZE Poland, another one heading to Zaragoza, and then this one headed to Ramstein. All right, all big birds, 747s. Another one on the board here coming in from JFK. That one more than likely is bringing migrants from Ramstein. All right, let's keep clicking on here. Okay, this is Ramstein, and just notice here's the one coming in from Dover. You got a lot of C-130s. Who is RO? Romanian Air Force. All right, good. We got Omni headed out. Where are they headed to from there? JFK. So remember when we reported in last SITREP that we were going to be bringing in the Muslims into our country in droves? Well, it has already begun. They already said it. They've already been doing it. They're just basically letting you know that they're doing it. So that's what that is right there. Bet my life on it. And then this one, look here, one right behind it, another one to the JFK. So yeah, they're bringing them in. So you're going to start to see them increase in our country exponentially. Now, where you may see the Germans pushing back, look at this. You got the police vehicle and then the line, almost like the Bataan death march here. But a majority of Germans reject the Muslim immigration, express fear of becoming a minority in Germany. Well, let me just say this. I spent about 8 months in Germany, 2 weeks there, 2 weeks back, when I was doing some contract work on missile defense, of all things. But I will just tell you that I stayed in Augsburg, and on Sundays, you would hear the Muslim call to prayer over the loudspeaker, all right? They have been overrun. If you walk down any of the side streets, back alleys inside of Augsburg, in the evening, it is a massive, massive Muslim population there, okay? And they are like that all over Germany. They are already starting to take over. Yes, it's called stealth jihad. They do that by nature, push them into communities, then they have lots of babies. They start taking over the community, things like city council, etc. And the next thing you know, they are implementing Sharia law. Go ask the UK. They can tell you exactly what happens there. All right. Speaking of the UK, these are the flights. Just notice you've got them in and out of Wiesbaden. You have them rolling. Oh, they're right here in New Orleans as well. That's interesting. Coming out of Canada. And then very, very active and busy this morning. We can see, looks like we got some headed into Cyprus and all over Europe. All right, moving on. Okay, U.S. Camber. This is transportation, moving precious cargo, 747, and then these two look to be troop movers. Okay, this one's already talked about that, heading into RZE Poland. Forward operating base right here. Speaking of RZE, you can see on the board we do have, looks like base commanders coming in again. Let me see, anything else catches my eye. U.S. military, Camber flight 747. And then leaving base commanders. So the base commanders seem to be coming in and out on a daily basis into RZE Poland. Okay, nothing really else there going on, but let's talk F-16s. You're not familiar with this aircraft. This is what it looks like. Notice the inlet for the engine is right here, very low to the ground. And this is the aircraft we're going to be talking about. Now, this is a new modern version of the F-16. They've been in production since 1978. Some of the ones that the Ukrainians are going to get, they will not be these modern new ones. They're going to be getting probably B and C models that are very dated, going to have to be modified. That takes a long time, okay, to do that. Now, if I get over here and just show you, let's take a look at Ukraine in and of its size. If you want to know, trying to size it up, just how big Ukraine is, to give you an idea, it's roughly the size of Texas, okay? Texas is 268,000 square miles. Ukraine is 233,000 square miles. So they're very close in nature. If you were to have any type of aircraft activity inside of Ukraine, you're going to have to operate them out of runways here. Well, the reason they're pushing in air defense is because you don't want to have your F-16s parked on the ground here because they are susceptible to drone strikes, missile attacks from Russia. Remember, the fighting edge is over here on this side of Ukraine. So if they were to operate out of here, this would be, you could say Dallas, Fort Worth. This would be probably, over here would be Shreveport, right? This would be Louisiana border. So you can imagine if they were flying missions in and out of central Ukraine, they're going to need good runways because these aircraft, you can't land them on stuff that has a lot of debris on the ground, etc. So they have to have clean, precise runways, which are, again, another target for the Ruskies. This was probably be their biggest strike point down here in Crimea, but they got to be close range. If they're not close range or they do operations out of here, well, like combat air patrol, etc., that's they could do that and try to command some air superiority. The issue you run into is that the Ukrainians don't know how to fly these aircraft. They're not skilled pilots. In fact, most of the ones that are being trained are they know very little about flying. They're new pilots, etc. So they're going into these training sessions to learn how to fly a very complex high-end aircraft, okay? But if they end up, let me take away the SPR, let's just take this into consideration. You have to learn about the weapon systems. You have to learn how to air refuel because you're going to need to air refuel to stay airborne for any period of time. This is going to take years. So not only do you need to have a training package, a curriculum, but you've got to be able to show them how to do all kinds of different campaigns, as well as the air refueling aspect. So you're talking air-to-air combat, totally different dynamic than air-to-ground. All right. And so when you're doing air to ground, you're going to be trying to do some type of maybe avoidance of, SAMs or the S-300, S-400 missile system lock-ons. You're going to have to learn how to do flare and chafe deployment. And, oh, by the way, you're going to need numbers because you also have the Ruskies who are flying into your airspace and doing airstrikes. So this has a huge timeline on it. You don't just take folks that are flying Cessnas or even if they're coming out of MiGs or Su-27s, which are both fly-by-wire aircraft. The F-16 is fly-by-wire. You got a little bit of, maybe some similarities there in terms of how the aircraft responds. F-16 is, it's not your everyday aircraft. And it's going to be far, far more superior than the Russian variants. And it's going to take a lot to fly. And again, air refueling is a technique that takes years to master, And these guys are not going to be able to do this right out of the gate. All right. So that means that you will be reliant on, more than likely, the NATO community to maintain airspace. So all of that said, if we go into any type of a war scenario, it's going to have to be a ground offensive. And then if we have any type of aerial support, it's going to be NATO. It has to be. All right. Now, let's get over here to this article where Russia's basically also warning that, hey, Ukraine, your F-16s will be considered a nuclear threat. All right. And so that is that's a big deal. And so I would imagine you're going to see them trying to keep the F-16s back into Poland, RZE or Poznan, et cetera. They'll have to use air refuelers to get them into their missions into the region. All right. Now, here we go. After ATACMS delivery, Ukraine pleads for MQ-9 Reaper drones. Okay, so we've given them, well, with the $60 billion, we're now over $200 billion of our tax dollars to fight a war that has gained zero gains. In fact, now they're asking for the MQ-9 Reapers, which you may remember, this is the one aircraft that keeps getting shot down over not only Syria, but they were getting shot down over the Black Sea. So this is what they're asking for. They were very expensive. It would put our very high-end technology into these hands. Of course, we already know that the Iranians have our technology, as do the Chinese. But yeah, that's a whole other story in and of itself. But then take a look at this too. Russian troops deployed to Niger, base housing where the U.S. soldiers are occupied. So this is going to be another, we talk about things escalating with Russia and the potential for things to go south. Well, guess what? In Nigeria, you now have U.S. and Russian forces occupying the same base. Not good. I would imagine we're going to have to get them out of here pretty quickly. Those are the Wagner group, by the way. All right. Okay. Now, let me just go up. I want to hit this headline real fast. As Russia ramps up Ukrainian offensive ahead of the arms boost, right? So they can see 747 starting to come into Ukraine. We're starting to give them the weapons. Look at this. This caught my eye. The Deep State Telegram channel, which is close to the Ukrainian army. Okay, Deep State, Ukraine army. All right, we've already talked about this is the Nazi stronghold. They've been there since 1948. Blame the command of brigade deployed basically on the collapse of the defenses in the area. So yeah, they're already starting to take hits along this front border right here, all right, and losing ground. Remember, they've been fighting for 2 years and they've got zero gains. $200 billion, 2 years, no gains in terms of pushing the Russians back. Zero. Okay. Your tax dollars at work. Okay, now let's move on to this one here. Russian threatens basically the UK with strikes on British targets. Here is your other big takeaway, because this is where it gets interesting. They basically are saying that, hey, look, we know that Ukraine has, the UK has basically infrastructure and assets inside Ukraine. And that's going to be their primary strike targets, all right? But they're saying that, hey, look, we already know you're close by. But if your assets strike anything inside the interior of Russia, we are going to basically not only take out the assets in Ukraine, but we're going to actually look at taking out some military assets either in the region or in the UK itself. All right. Now, here we go. Omni serving many masters. Again, this one right here, Ramstein to JFK, that's migrants. All right. Bet my life on it. And then National Cargo. All right. Just notice the amount going into, this is JFK to Tel Aviv. That's probably just an independent. The Israelis hired, a charter to carry some stuff over. That's probably how they're getting things in. And notice that the U.S. isn't delivering any of it. We're basically making them come and get it. All right. Yeah, not good. And then this one, I'm headed to Orlando. That's kind of an interesting flight. And coming out of here, right? That's out of Poland, right up here. So Poland into Orlando. I wonder what that is. Airbus. Maybe troops. Could be some troops coming back. Little rotation. And then, of course, the Hong Kong piece, ignore that. That's going to be independent. That's probably not militarily related. But then you've got this one here, Ontario, Canada, over to RZE, Poland. So we're starting to see that stack up going, okay, yet again. And then this one, this is just El Gora. If you're not familiar with where this base is located, let me just pop it up here on the board. 2 flights in and out. That was on Thursday and Sunday. So the base is still very, they're not, I wouldn't say very active, but they're active. This is Gaza, okay? And so this is where they're operating out of. More than likely, they've got some refugee support happening there. UN's probably staged there, several others. So, okay, listen, that is going to do it for our SITREP today. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. We'll see you on Thursday with the next one. That's it. God bless. Keep that powder dry. Stay frosty. Monkey out.
Thanks for watching. Head over to the online store to check out the latest gear and products by scanning the QR code on screen now, or go to monkeyworksus.com.